Inna alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulallah. We're continuing with the signs of the last hour. We've been speaking about the arrival of the Mahdi, and we talked about how there will be no caliphate or no leader over the Muslim countries or no leader over the Muslims until he comes. And he will not come until the war against Islam is already happening. And what is the war of Islam? The war against Islam. That will be when all the countries, the United Nations, will pledge their support to Israel and will fight against the Muslim lands, the Muslim countries, Saudi, Yemen, Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Pakistan, any so-called Muslim country. Okay, when that war is going on, when the United Nations has given its support to Israel to fight against the Muslim lands, that is when the Mahdi will appear. And he will announce who he is. He will appear from Mecca. He will come from out of Mecca. He will be from the Prophet's family. He will be an Arab from the Quraysh. That's his tribe. He will announce who he is to the world. And he will request to meet with the United Nations. He will request this. Because remember, the prophet said he will bring about peace. So he will attempt to try to bring about peace to the world. And all the Muslims who truly believe in Allah will respond to his call by making hijrah to Mecca, where they will give their allegiance to him. Because when the Mahdi or the Caliphate does come, we do have to give our allegiance to him. And then once the Muslims give their pledge their allegiance to him, the Mahdi and the Muslims will leave from out of Mecca to Israel to meet at the summit there with the United Nations. And the Mahdi will try to bring about peace. And that's what we're going to talk about. Because when he comes, we talked about yesterday how when the Mahdi makes his speech to the United Nations, they will be so impressed with him, his mannerisms, and with what he is saying, his truthfulness. They will be in so much impression with him that they will end up supporting him. The United Nations will end up supporting the Mahdi and the Muslim lands. They will recognize Israel for being the troublemaker that it's always been. They will recognize the lies, the deceit, the war atrocities that Israel has afflicted. And so the United Nations will end up offering its support to the Mahdi and the Muslim lands. Israel will become angry, and that's when they will continue to fight. But this time it'll be different. You will find the United Nations in support of the Muslims' land, and they will be fighting against Israel. Okay, but guess what? Israel won't be alone. Because when the United Nations gives its support to the Muslim lands, that's when the Antichrist appears. The Antichrist. He will come and he will offer his support to Israel. And he will bring with him many people, many followers who will support Israel in the war against Islam. The war against now the United Nations and Islam. And that's where we are at right now. Let's speak a little bit more about this. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, just before the last hour comes, there will be many liars. Be on guard against them. In fact, the last hour will not come until nearly 30 liars will appear, and they will all claim to be prophets from Allah. And this is what the Antichrist will do. When the Antichrist appears, he will offer his support to Israel. He will have many followers, and he will claim that not only is he a messenger, he will claim to be Allah himself. That's how he is. He's a liar. He will lie and claim to be Allah, claim to be God himself. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the last hour will not come until 30 liars appear, each of them claiming to be a messenger from Allah. Money will increase, hardships will appear, and murder will increase. Okay? And we've already experienced nearly 30 antichrists. Look how many people have appeared over the years, over the centuries, over the decades, claiming to be messengers of God. Elijah Muhammad claimed to be a messenger of God. Okay? But the last one that will appear will be the Antichrist. Okay? And also the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the time of the Antichrist will be years of confusion. He will come and offer his support to Israel, and he will confuse the people because they will believe him. They will believe everything he says. People will distrust the people who are trustworthy. Okay, so he will come and really cause confusion, because those people who support him and believe him will be totally confused by him. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I warn you against the Antichrist. He said, in fact, every prophet has warned their people against him, even Noah. And again, the Christians believe in the Antichrist, the Jews, everyone does, because all the prophets warned against him. But the Prophet Muhammad said, I'm going to go in detail telling you something about him that no other prophet has told. You must know that the Antichrist will have one eye. He will claim to be God, but understand that God does not have one eye. So the prophet lets us know when the Antichrist comes, how will you recognize him? He will claim to be Allah, and he will only have one eye. Also, the prophet said he will have written between on his forehead the word kafir, which means unbeliever. But the only people who will be able to see those words are the true believers. The sad thing is, guys, most people living on earth will believe that the Antichrist is God, because he's going to come at a time when the world is filled with war. There's going to be so much suffering, so much pain, so much agony. We will be living the apocalypse. Okay? Technology will be gone. We'll be living like in the dark ages again. This man will come and he will do things to make you think he is God. So even people claiming to be Muslims will think that he's God. He will have more supporters, more followers than anyone. So the only people that will recognize him for the evil man he is are the true believers, but it won't be that many true believers, guys. So he'll be blind in one eye. In fact, the prophet said it'll be his right eye. He said the right eye of the Antichrist will be blind. Okay? Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I know more about the Antichrist's powers than he will know himself. He will appear to bring forth 2 rivers. And he will come at a time when the world is suffering from war. There will be no water, no food. He will appear to have 2 flowing rivers with him. But one will be made out of water. The other will really be fire. But the people will think that the river of water is water when it's really fire. And they will drink from it. Okay? So this is why he'll have so many followers. He will be like a magician, able to make what the people think are miracles appear when they're not really miracles. He will come to the people, bringing what will resemble paradise before them, and bringing what will resemble hell. And the people will think what is paradise, but in reality is hell. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the Antichrist, he will travel the world. He will travel all around the world with his followers, trying to make the people believe he is God. And most of the people will believe him. But he will not be able to enter into the city of Mecca. He will not be able to enter into the city of Medina. Also, he will not have children. Okay? And he will not have a wife. Okay, so these are things every prophet has warned against the Antichrist. But as you guys can see, our prophet went into more detail about him. Okay? Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the Antichrist will be a young man. He described him. He said he will be young in age. He will have short curly hair. And he will have one eye that appears to be floating. He'll be blind in his right eye. And if you live to see him, you should recite the beginning of the Surah of the Cave, and that will serve as a protection for you. But the reality is, guys, most Muslims will think that he's God, and they won't even think about the Surah of the Cave. Also, the Prophet said that where will he come from? The Antichrist will come from in between Syria and Iraq, and he will create disaster left and right. He will come to the people and call them to a false religion, but the people will believe him and respond to him. He will then say something to the sky and make it appear to rain. He will then say some words to the earth, and then crops will grow. Remember, he's coming during the war. This is the war. This is when the United Nations and the Muslim countries and the Mahdi are fighting against Israel. So much war. He will come to the people calling them to a false religion. Okay, for those people who reject his call, they will suffer famine. And they will suffer even more drought. So again, a lot of the people will think that he is God because of this. Okay? But there will be one young man who will not believe in the Antichrist and what he claimed to be. When the Antichrist comes to his town, his country, his village, that young man will refuse to answer his call. So the Antichrist will hit him with a sword and cut him in half. And then he will tell the young man to come back to life. And that young man will come back to life. But when the young man comes back to life, he will tell him, it was not you who brought me back to life. It was Allah who did. And that's when that happens, that's when the next of the great events of the last hour will occur. That's when Jesus, the son of Mary, will be sent back down to earth. Right after the Antichrist cuts that young boy in half and appears to bring him back to life, that young boy will come back smiling and say, you didn't bring me back. God, the real God did. And right when that young boy says that, Jesus will come back. He will come down from the church in Damascus wearing 2 garments dyed with saffron, and he will be holding on to the wings of 2 angels. So that's when Jesus will appear. And as I told you guys yesterday, it will be Jesus who destroys the Antichrist. When Jesus comes down off that church in Damascus, he will search for the Antichrist until he finds him. And he will find him standing at the gate of Jerusalem. And Jesus will be the one to kill him. And by the way, guys, when Jesus comes back, he will not come back as a prophet. As a prophet. He will be coming back as a leader. of the world, because there will be no prophets after the prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Jesus will come back. He will destroy the Antichrist. At the same time, the Mahdi will be here. After Jesus destroys the Antichrist, he will then meet with the Mahdi, who is the leader over the Muslims. And they will make prayer together, all the Muslims, with Jesus. And after that, guys, the Mahdi will die, because there's no need for him. The Mahdi will die. Jesus will perform his funeral prayer. And who becomes the leader over the Muslims then? Jesus does. But not only will Jesus be the leader over the Muslims, he will be the leader over the entire world. Okay? And he will establish his lead from Jerusalem. And he will stop the war. Jesus will bring about peace to the entire world. Okay? The earth will then bring forth its fruit. Okay? The war will end. Jesus will declare Islam to be the religion of not the land, but of the world. And then everyone living on earth at that time will become Muslim. So that will be the time when Christianity is no longer the majority. In fact, Jesus will have every cross destroyed from off of every church turned into a mosque, and Islam will become the religion of the world, and the world will experience years of peace, years of contentment, years of happiness. Okay, after Jesus comes. And there's many hadiths that speak about this. For example, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the Jews will be defeated with the help of Allah. There will be no place for them to hide. They will not be able to hide behind any rock without it calling out saying, "Oh, Muslim, here's a Jew, kill him and kill him." This is all speaking about the war. When the United Nations gives its support to the Mahdi, and they go out and fight against the Jews, okay, even the rocks will say, "Here's a Jew hiding behind me." Okay. Also, more support. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said Medina will be shaken by 3 earthquakes, and every hypocrite will be kicked out of it and cleansed, and Medina will be cleansed of them. When this occurs, the Arabs will be few, because most of them will be in Jerusalem with the Mahdi. While the Mahdi is leading the people in the morning prayer, Jesus will arrive. The Mahdi will step back to ask Jesus to lead the people in prayer, but Jesus will place his hand on the Mahdi's shoulder and say, "No, you are the leader of the Muslims. You lead the people in prayer." So the Mahdi will lead the people in prayer, and afterwards, Jesus will say, "Open the gates," and the gates to Israel will be open, and behind the gate will be standing the Antichrist, and he will have 1,000 Jews with him. But when the Antichrist sees Jesus, he will begin to melt, and he will try to run away. Jesus will then say to him, "You will remain alive until I kill you." And Jesus will catch up to the Antichrist, and he will kill him at the eastern gate of Lud in Jerusalem. So here's the hadith detailing what will happen. And then the Jews will be defeated. All of them. Okay? And also the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, how long will this all occur? How long would it take how long would the Antichrist be here? The Prophet said the time of the Antichrist will be 40 years. So he'll be here on earth creating havoc for 40 years, guys. And 1 year will seem like a month. A month will seem like a week. Okay? Though, in other words, those 40 years will go by so fast. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Jesus, the son of Mary, will be a just ruler. And he will be the leader of my nation. He will destroy the cross. He will destroy the pigs. And he will abolish the tax for non-Muslims. Why? Because there will be no non-Muslims. When Jesus comes and destroys the Antichrist, the rest of the world will give homage to him. And he will become the leader over the people of the world. They will accept him as their leader. Remember, every religion teaches of the return of Jesus. Just like they teach about the Antichrist, they teach about the return of Jesus too. So the people will give homage to him, allegiance to him, and everybody will become Muslim. Also, the Prophet said, every harmful animal will become harmless, so that a small child will be able to put his hand in a snake's mouth without being harmed. A little girl will be able to make a lion run away from her without being harmed. So in other words, the world will go through such peace with Jesus as its leader. The Prophet said the earth will be filled with peace, and the people will be in complete agreement with each other, and they will only worship Allah. There will be no more praying to the stars, no more idol worshiping. He said the wars will all disappear, and the authority of the Quraysh will be taken. Why? Because Jesus is not Arab. Jesus is not Quraysh. He's Hebrew. He's Hebrew. He's Hebrew. So the Quraysh will no longer have the authority on earth. It will now belong to Jesus, who is Hebrew. Okay? And also the Prophet told us before the Antichrist comes. He said before the Antichrist comes, the people will suffer from hunger, starvation, because Allah will cause the sky to not produce rain. Allah will cause the earth to not produce food. And even the hoofed creatures will die. So there will be so much tribulation, so much punishment for the world before the Antichrist comes. And then it just gets worse after he comes. And for 40 years, he'll bring about havoc until Jesus comes. So that tells you how long the Mahdi will rule. The Mahdi will still be the leader over the Muslims for those 40 years. But those 40 years will be spent fighting against the Jews and dealing with the fitna of the Antichrist. A rough 40 years. You got a lot of Muslims today talking about how they wish that the Mahdi were here. Do you really wish he were here? Would you be able to live during those times? 40 years of starvation, 40 years of no rain, no water, no food, no technology. We're back in the Black Ages, the Dark Ages. Would you want to be around? Then you got some man traveling the world calling himself God, appearing to do miracles, when he's really not a God. He's the Antichrist, and all he's using is trickery. Do you really want to be around? Something to think about. Okay, so this is what Islam teaches us about the Antichrist, the Mahdi, and Jesus. The next time we meet, we'll talk more about we're going to talk about Jesus' reign. He's the one that destroys the Antichrist. The Mahdi has died. He's the leader of the world. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about Jesus' reign. Okay? All right, so we'll stop right here for today. If you guys